That night, when I was about to prepare dinner, I asked Andy what he wanted to eat. Normally, a child would mention their favorite food like hamburgers or fried chicken. But Andy seemed hesitant, not so much reluctant as puzzled by my question. "What's wrong? You can tell me what you like. Grandma will make anything for you." I asked him what he liked, but he didn't answer. I felt like I was blaming Andy if I asked him anymore. I told him to wait in the living room and watch TV instead. I decided to prepare a menu that I thought children would like. Set the table, and called Andy to have dinner. However, he wouldn't sit at the table. "What's wrong? Don't you want to eat?" Andy shook his head vigorously in response to my question. "Then why?" Suddenly, Andy asked me with a puzzled look. "Grandma, am I allowed to eat today?" Hearing Andy's words made me wonder if there was something wrong with my ears, or if I was hearing things. But when I asked again, the response confirmed that I hadn't misheard. "What? You're supposed to eat 3 meals a day, aren't you?" Following further questioning, Andy suddenly ran out to the garden through the window and started pulling weeds. Surprised by his sudden strange behavior, I stopped him from pulling weeds, embraced him, and brought him back inside. "Why? Why do I have to stop?" "Grandma, I'm hungry." "You're hungry, right? That's why I prepared this meal for you. So why would you start pulling weeds?" "Because Mom always says I shouldn't eat without helping out with something." Shocked by what Andy said next, I pressed for more details, only to uncover an astonishing truth. When I was 22, I fell in love at first sight with a man who transferred to my department from a rural area where I was working. I approached him desperately at work and in private. By coincidence, our houses were close, and we eventually started meeting up and returning home together, even if our work hours didn't match. One day on the train home, packed with people, he protected me by standing close. My heart wouldn't stop racing, and in the middle of the crowded space, I murmured a confession. "Would you like to go out with me?" Clutching the sleeve of his suit, I confessed with tears welling up in my eyes from embarrassment. I must have looked so cunning. Yet, he blushed and said, "Yes, of course, Susan," without caring about the people around us, and we kissed, starting our relationship. Things moved quickly from there. We started living together soon after dating, got married within a year, and were blessed with a child. Having always dreamed of a happy married life, I was ecstatic to have a child. We named our child Mike, a name we chose together, truly at the peak of happiness. However, this happiness didn't last long. When Mike was 3, suspicious of my husband's unnaturally late returns, I had a friend from the same company investigate. It turned out he was leaving work on time but was seen disappearing into a hotel with a younger woman from the same department. That was when I first learned of his affairs. Facing undeniable evidence of infidelity, my husband confessed when I confronted him. Our seemingly happy marriage felt like just a 4-year-long play of make-believe. I slammed down the ring and divorce papers, taking Mike and leaving him. As a single mother, I struggled to balance work and home life while raising Mike. Seeing me work hard, Mike, still a child, did his best to help around the house to ease my burden. I fondly remember crying in front of other parents during a school visitation day, when I heard an essay about a future dream saying, "My dream for the future is to make life easier for my mom." Mike grew up healthy and is now 27 years old. He has finally decided to introduce his longtime girlfriend as his fiancée, showing a mature side of himself. This is Daisy. "Mom, I'm thinking of marrying Daisy." Daisy, introduced to me, spoke clearly and confidently, not easily intimidated, which left a good impression on me. "Mike, if you've decided on her, then I won't object. She seems really nice, doesn't she? Congratulations. Really? So, you're giving us your blessing? Yes. But in exchange, you must make her happy, okay? She's a good woman, and there might not be another like her. I understand. Daisy, let's build a happy family together. Yes. Thank you, Susan. Intuitively feeling that Mike and Daisy were a good match, I gave them my blessing and sent them off to their bright future together. Congratulations on your marriage, Mike, Daisy. It was a happy and embarrassing moment when the two weddings evoked memories of the past and brought large tears to my eyes. A year after their sunny stage of happiness, they were blessed with a third family member, Andy. Being present at Andy's birth with Mike and crying tears of joy at the sight of him was a memory too wonderful for words, but seeing Mike, who adores children, crying even more than Daisy, who had worked hard through the childbirth, was a sight that made me happy as a mother. Years later, I received a call from Mike. He was going to be working in a different region on his own, and asked if I could occasionally check on Daisy and Andy during his absence. I think they'll be okay, but Andy is at that age where he's a handful, and I'm worried. You don't have to do it every day, but could you check on them about once a week? I understood Mike's concerns. Indeed, Mike was also a handful as a child, and it was challenging for a single woman to manage a child full of energy, while Mike had been able to manage so far with both of them around. It's understandable that he would be worried about leaving them alone while he's away on a solo assignment. Understood, it's your request after all. And I want to see how my dear grandson is doing too. With Mike reassured, he left for his assignment, and I started visiting them on weekends. Feeling it awkward to visit empty-handed, I packed some snacks Andy likes, and some homemade dishes that last long in a plastic container. Upon ringing the doorbell and showing myself on the monitor, Daisy appeared at the entrance with a flurry of footsteps. Susan? What brings you here today? Well, Mike was worried about you too while he's away on his assignment, and kept nagging me to check on you. Oh, that's why. It's a bit messy inside, but please come in. Daisy seemed a bit troubled for a moment, but it made sense to feel that way given the almost unannounced visit. Entering the house, Andy, who was playing with drawing in the living room, greeted me with a smile. Having not seen Andy for a while, he had grown taller. And although he had a cute face like a girl's when he was a baby, he now looked completely like a lively little boy. Here, I brought some gifts. Some snacks and homemade dishes. Feel free to enjoy them. Wow, thank you so much. Mike really worries too much. Please make yourself comfortable today. Taking up Daisy's offer, I spent a lovely time playing board and card games with Andy and watching his favorite anime. For dinner, we enjoyed the dishes I brought and some that Daisy and I cooked together. When we started eating dinner, I couldn't help but notice something off about Andy's eagerness. It was as if I was watching those hungry children on overseas educational programs. A sight somehow overlapping with Andy's. But that's a situation of orphans abroad, and Andy has Daisy, his mother. It couldn't possibly be that he's not getting enough to eat. Andy, you don't have to rush. No one's going to take your food away. Despite my encouragement for Andy to eat slowly as he eagerly devoured his meal, it seemed like he couldn't hear me, completely absorbed in his food. Andy has been like this at mealtimes recently, as if he's in a growth spurt. I'm sorry, it seems like my parenting is to blame. Oh, a growth spurt, I see. Well, he needs to eat plenty at his age to grow big and strong. Hearing that it was a growth spurt, I was convinced and gave some dishes on my plate to Andy. After dinner, as Daisy and I chatted while doing the dishes, I played with Andy a bit more before leaving to catch the bus back home. A few months later, I received an unusual call from Daisy. "Susan, I'm sorry to bother you suddenly. Mike seems to have fallen ill while out, and I need to go take care of him. Could you look after Andy for a while?" "I'm totally fine, but is Mike okay? Should I go instead?" I offered to take care of Mike instead. But Daisy insisted it wouldn't be right to trouble me and left Andy in my care. While I understood the concern for Mike possibly being ill far from home, I accepted Daisy's request to care for Andy, promising to take responsibility. Daisy, for some reason, assured me that she would call me if something happened to Mike. Likely because she would not be able to get a call from me while caring for Mike. I wondered if this was an expression of Daisy's wish that Mike's nursing care be left completely up to her. And together with Andy, I saw Daisy off as she headed to Mike's. "Is Dad going to be okay?" "He'll be fine, don't worry. Your dad has always been strong and gets over a cold quickly. Plus, your mom is with him, so there's nothing to worry about." I reassured a worried Andy and took him back to my house. Anticipating a delightful time with my grandson, I decided to make this brief period a fun and memorable one. "Andy, when we get to Grandma's house, let's play with the toys I used to play with. I've always been good at keeping things. And I had recently cleaned up the toys that Mike and I used to play with, saving them for Andy to enjoy at the right age." "Really? I want to play." "Yay!" Relieved to see Andy happy about the old toys. We spent a peaceful time watching anime he wanted to see, and playing with nostalgic toys like tops and board games. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, I asked Andy what he wanted to eat. Normally, a child would ask for their favorite foods like hamburgers or fried chicken. But Andy hesitated, looking more puzzled by my question than reluctant. "What's wrong? You can tell me what you like. Grandma will make anything for you." I asked him what he liked, but he didn't answer. I felt like I was blaming Andy if I asked him anymore. I told him to wait in the living room and watch TV instead. I decided to prepare a menu that I thought children would like, set the table, and called Andy to have dinner. However, he wouldn't sit at the table. "What's wrong? Don't you want to eat?" Andy shook his head vigorously in response to my question. "Then why?" Suddenly, Andy asked me with a puzzled look. "Grandma, am I allowed to eat today?" Hearing Andy's words made me wonder if there was something wrong with my ears or if I was hearing things. But when I asked again, the response confirmed that I hadn't misheard. "What? You're supposed to eat 3 meals a day, aren't you?" Following further questioning, Andy suddenly ran out to the garden through the window and started pulling weeds. Surprised by his sudden strange behavior, I stopped him from pulling weeds, embraced him, and brought him back inside. "Why? Why do I have to stop?" "Grandma, I'm hungry." "You're hungry, aren't you? That's why I prepared this meal for you. So why would you start pulling weeds?" "Because Mom always says I can't eat without helping out with something." Shocked by Andy's unexpected revelation, I decided to ask for more details. According to Andy, after Mike left for his solo assignment, Daisy started demanding that he help around the house and be a good boy. And she wouldn't feed him if he didn't obey. Andy had been sneaking around looking for any food he could find while Daisy was out, or waiting for her to return when there was nothing left to eat. My eyes welled up with tears of sadness as I remembered my visit to Daisy's house, where she had mentioned Andy eating eagerly because he was in a growth spurt. I realized that might have been because he hadn't eaten until then. I wondered why I hadn't picked up on the signs and why I had convinced myself everything was fine without truly understanding Andy's feelings. I felt regret for not noticing sooner and anger towards Daisy. "Listen, Andy. You might not understand now, But what your mom is doing is wrong. You don't have to be a good boy or help out to deserve your meals. You're going to grow up, and you need to eat well. After reassuring Andy, I got him to sit down again, and we enjoyed a full dinner together, followed by watching anime and sharing watermelon for dessert. Once Andy had fallen asleep, I sent a message to Mike, informing him of the situation and asking him to contact me once he was feeling better. Despite Daisy's instructions not to contact them, I felt it was no longer possible to keep that promise. Mike called back immediately, to my relief, as I had feared Daisy might be controlling his phone due to her supposed illness. Mom, what's going on? Andy hasn't been fed while I've been away. It's exactly as I told you. Isn't Daisy there with you? Huh? Daisy? There's no way she's here with me at my assignment location. I left after telling you to take care of them. A discrepancy emerged between what Daisy had told me and the truth. Daisy left Andy with me, saying she had to go take care of you because you were ill. Ill? That's not possible. If something like that had happened, I would have contacted you, right? Indeed, that made sense. If something had happened, Mike would have surely let me know. This revelation made Daisy's story about being unable to contact due to caregiving seem even more suspicious, as if she was trying to keep us apart and hide something. Come to think of it, Daisy had told me not to come home even if I got a long holiday. This might mean, could it be that? It finally dawned on us that Daisy had been lying to both of us. Everything Andy and I shared was news to Mike. Mike's anger towards Daisy was palpable over the phone. After hearing everything, he decided to take leave the next day to return to Andy. The next morning, Mike arrived at my house, tearfully embracing Andy, who had come to the door with me. Dad. Welcome back. What happened? Andy. I'm sorry for being such a bad dad. Mike had already decided that divorce was the only option after learning about the treatment of his son and suspecting Daisy of infidelity, especially since she was out at night while he was away, searching for evidence of infidelity at home. Mike found hotel reservations for 2 on Daisy's computer, indicating she might have been staying out with someone else. That evidence alone was more than enough to suspect infidelity. Mike hired a detective agency to investigate further. A week later, unaware that Mike knew everything, Daisy contacted me, saying she would return the next day since Mike had recovered. I immediately forwarded this message to Mike, who took leave to wait at home for Daisy to come pick up Andy. Unaware of what awaited her, Daisy arrived at my house, cheerfully expecting to fetch Andy. Andy. I've come to pick you up. Daisy was met with Mike's angry expression as she opened the door. I locked the door to prevent her from escaping, and led her into the house to set the stage for a confrontation. I've heard everything from Andy. While I was away, you hardly fed him properly. Mike confronted Daisy furiously, but she avoided eye contact and muttered, "It was discipline." Infuriated by her attitude, Mike presented further evidence from the detective agency and the hotel reservation history, demanding a divorce and custody of Andy. I can't trust you with Andy. I can't bear the thought of something happening to him. Wait. That's too harsh. I didn't do this because I wanted to. So what then? Were you being blackmailed by your lover? Like in a soap opera? That's why you were fine with going to a hotel with someone you don't love? Sounds too convenient. I was under a lot of stress. After you left, I had to take care of everything and Andy all by myself. I was tired. Daisy claimed she had taken out her frustrations on Andy, and sought solace in infidelity due to the hardships of handling everything alone after Mike's departure. Mike scratched his head at her obviously sympathetic tone. and slammed a few more photos of the man from his bag onto the floor. I only learned this when Mike told me that Daisy had secretly sneaked out on nights when Mike couldn't get home from work and was chatting happily with her boyfriend. Can you still say the same with all this evidence? I'm saying it one more time, we're getting a divorce. I'm taking Andy's custody. Got it? Fine. Do whatever you want. I don't care anymore. I'll marry the man who truly loves me. Quiet. I told you, I'd only say it once. You're pathetic. Daisy left the house in a rage, struggling with the lock on the door I had secured. Andy seemed to want to stop her, but I held him back. Dad, did you and Mom fight? Andy looked confusedly at Mike. Listen, Andy. It might be hard for you to understand now, but your mom and I didn't fight. We're saying goodbye. But from now on, we'll live happily together, just you and me. Mike reassured Andy, determined not to let him worry further, stroking his head with a smile. Witnessing this, I decided to support them as much as I could in the background. Later, the detective agency's additional findings indicated that Daisy's affair partner was already married, leading to a substantial compensation claim from his wife. Daisy attempted to reconcile with Mike, but a restraining order had been issued, leaving her no choice but to fend for herself. Mike switched to a fully remote job and decided to live with me and Andy, ensuring he wouldn't have to leave Andy alone again. Despite the initial confusion, Andy adapted well to his new environment, even knowing the house better than Mike at times. We now enjoy warm, homemade meals together every day, ensuring Andy never has to worry about going hungry or sensing the mood before eating again. Hoping that Andy's future memories will only be filled with the warmth of family, we continue to cherish our meals together, filled with happiness.